The bumps and bruises of the 2025 season haven't really had a chance to settle in yet, but the Seahawks had good injury news coming out of Wednesday's practice. We'll be taking a deep dive into the first injury report here on our latest Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my trusty co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you're nearby Bellevue, Washington, or in the land of Tyler Lockett and Steve Largent in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. 4 days away now from week 1, opening kickoff, Seahawks 49ers. We have our first injury report of the season. We'll be taking a look at mostly good news for the Seattle Seahawks heading into Sunday's opener against their bitter division rivals from the Bay Area. Plus, we've got our first matchup Wednesday. We'll be taking a deep dive into all the key matchups to watch some new look teams in Seattle and San Francisco, some different matchups that we might be watching, and a few old standbys as well. Jam-packed episode brought your way courtesy of our friends over at Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Now for your lead story here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Typically, you are hoping to have a very short injury list when you're going into the first game of the regular season, but there is training camp, there is the preseason. Guys get banged up in July and August, so there's usually a few players that are on the injury report even going into the season opener. That's the case for the Seahawks. They had 5 names on the list today, but I think we have to start first off, Rob, with a name that wasn't on this list. For those of you who may have had concerns about second-year linebacker Tyrese Knight, who missed most of training camp, did not play in the preseason. A lot of this having to do with an undisclosed medical issue. Mike McDonald did not dive into specifics on that. He had a knee injury at the beginning of camp. That has been healed up for some time based on who I've talked to, but it was the medical situation. They got clearance. He's returned to practice. Was not even listed on the injury report today. So that would tell me, Rob, that we will absolutely see number 48 in the middle next to Ernest Jones. And I think that is crucial when you're talking about what the 49ers love to do, running the football and the way they pass the ball. They like to attack linebackers in coverage. Having both your starters in that position is a big deal for week 1.
It is fantastic news for the Seahawks, the Tyrese Knight, at least by all evidence that we have at this point. The Tyrese Knight is going to be on the field next to Ernest Jones, going up against a running back as dynamic as Christian McCaffrey, a tight end as dynamic as George Kittle. And if Seattle has their 2 starting inside linebackers, Corbin, you know this, that is a significant step towards the Seahawks emerging from week 1 with the victory. And I think that the fact that Torrey Horton was listed as a full practice participant. Look, obviously, this is a 5th round pick, a rookie that, some nationally are not giving his due. But at the same time, I think that there's plenty of evidence to suggest that he is going to be Seattle's starting punt returner. We saw some big play ability from him for the Seahawks. Certainly, if you look at his Colorado State tape, where he had 3 touchdowns over his college career in that regard. And then again, as his ability as a receiver as well. Again, a full participant for Torrey Horton, not even on the injury report. As you mentioned with Tyrese Knight, fantastic news from a Seahawks perspective.
Yeah, the Horton news is excellent because especially with the fact that the player he beat out, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, just got promoted to the 49ers active roster. He's going to be playing in this game just wearing white, red, and gold. So Seattle needs to have their upstart rookie that beat him out for that number 3 receiver spot ready to go. They've been cautious with him since he tweaked that ankle in the second preseason game. It looks to me like he's going to be ready to go. As far as the question marks that the Seahawks have, Derek Young was listed as a limited participant. Cody White also dealing with something, but it is worth noting that right now, Jake Bobo, that might be the most up in the air situation that the Seahawks have, because according to Mike McDonald, he is still in the concussion protocol. Now, he was limited in practice. So that would suggest that he is getting close to being out of that protocol, but Mike McDonald said he wasn't out of it yet. So that still makes that look like a 50-50. If I had to predict now, I would say Bobo is going to be out there. And then maybe the biggest question mark in terms of readiness, Uchenna Nwosu has been practicing and ramping stuff up the last couple of weeks since he was taken off of the PUP list and was allowed to return to the practice field. He's still doing a lot of stuff on his own, at least what you can see before the media is kicked out and sent inside. He's doing a lot of work on his own with coaches. It sounds like they are just kind of going to let this play out and see it how it goes. And if he's ready to go by the end of the week, then they'll play him. If not, they'll hold him out for a week. So that's another one that truly it's anyone's guess whether Uchenna Nwosu is going to play. If I had to guess on that front, I'd say they probably hold him off for one more week. But I'm not going to sit here and say it's impossible that he plays in this game against the San Francisco 49ers either.
No, I agree with you. I think the Seattle's going to play the long game with a veteran like Uchenna Nwosu, especially considering the fact that they have some pretty talented pass rushers on the outside, even without Uchenna Nwosu. And I think one of the things that we're going to be discussing all year long, Corbin, is how Seattle is going to play the quarterback game. Obviously, Sam Darnold is your starter. But at the same time now, the Seahawks are going to have to likely have three quarterbacks active at all times if they are truly going to use Jalen Milroe as their kind of short yardage kind of a guy. As I mentioned in yesterday's podcast, the Seahawks scrum or Seattle scrum kind of a specialist. And so if that is the case, because I think that we all can agree that it is very clearly a three quarterback situation here. Sam Darnold is your starter. Drew Lock is your backup. Jalen Milroe is the guy that you're going to build around for the future and use as your short yardage specialist at the quarterback position. Then I do think that Seattle is going to have to kind of figure out some opportunities to be able to get him onto the field for them. And so that might mean a player like Uchenna Nwosu, who's right on the edge of whether he's going to be active or not. Maybe he is inactive and you allow Milroe to be active.
Yeah, and I think that this also opens the door for Jared Ivey to get some snaps in Sunday's game as well. Because you may, if you've been watching the preseason games, he is kind of a positionless player, which is, I think is a great thing. He can play. He played some nose in the preseason. He played a lot of 3-tech, 5-tech on head up on the tackle with his hands in the dirt, 2-point stance, outside linebacker. That's where they could utilize him. He has done that some with the Seahawks. He obviously did it at Ole Miss. So feels like he would be probably that fourth guy in line playing more that big-bodied edge if they're not going to have Uchenna Nwosu in this game. And I think if you have any doubts about Nwosu's readiness, you aren't playing him. It's week 1. You want him when he gets back to have the best chance possible to stay on the field. If you get him back too early, you're risking him getting hurt again, and then you're losing him for a significant chunk of time. So they are going to be cautious again. That's why I'm thinking it's probably more likely they're going to hold him off, but we don't know how much progress that he has made. He may be very well firing on all cylinders, ready to go for this weekend. So the Seahawks have been keeping that in mind this entire time with Uchenna Nwosu. So we'll see what happens on that front. The receivers that have a couple of minor dings, we'll see who ends up playing for Seattle. But really good news for Tyrese Knight, not even being on the injury report. You're going to see him out there next to Ernest Jones. I think that's huge news. And Torrey Horton looks like he's trending towards playing in this game. So you get your burner to go with Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba going into this game. Overall, pretty good vibes for the Seattle Seahawks. We can't say that about the team that plays next door right now, but nonetheless, the injury vibes looking pretty good for the Seahawks heading into this week 1 contest. When we come back, it's Matchup Wednesday, the first time all year. We have been waiting for this. There's a lot of changes for both these rosters for the Seahawks and the 49ers. We're going to look at the Seahawks on offense going up against the 49ers on defense. Key matchups to watch coming up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items for the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a real game changer. The Part Finder tool and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every last detail matters. And their Trade Master perks like priority shipping and dedicated support make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go the extra yard, shift into that gear, and keep moving the game forward. Even though the game had already been decided, Cody White came through down the stretch in the Seahawks preseason finale against the Packers, catching a fourth quarter touchdown pass from Jalen Milroe that may have very well propelled him to one of the final roster spots. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. That's your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Seahawks 49ers round one coming early this year. In fact, the earliest it could happen. Week one, we get to see the two rivals duke it out at Lumen Field on Sunday afternoon. A chance to make a statement in the NFC West right out of the gate. And as we do every Wednesday during the season, matchup Wednesday time, we're going to dive into all the key matchups. And we're going to start with the Seahawks offense against the 49ers defense. And we talked about this yesterday. There's going to be a lot of new faces that we're going to be discussing in this segment compared to the last several years. The 49ers breaking in a lot of youngsters, a lot of new players at all three levels. There's going to be some old standbys, though, as well. And you always have to start this discussion when you talk about the 49ers with dealing with number 97 off the edge, Nick Bosa. He's got a couple new running mates as well. The rookie Michael Williams, first-round pick out of Georgia, coming in, and Bryce Huff, who was acquired from the Eagles in a trade. Those three players, particularly, you're going to be highlighting Nick Bosa, always one of the elite edge rushers in the NFL. You get to see Charles Cross coming back from finger surgery, and Abraham Lucas, who to this point looks to have the knee issues that dogged him the last 2 years completely behind him. Hey, guess what, guys? First game, you get to deal with Nick Bosa, and it's really going to be a good litmus test to see where both these young tackles are at, health-wise and progression-wise, with the new coaching staff that's been working with them.
It's one of the best things about the season, in my opinion, Corbin, is the fact that the Seahawks are going to be going up against a very talented division rival, and you're going to see right off the bat, where Seattle stacks up. Look, I kind of scoff at the notion that week one is a must-win kind of a situation, but I think the fact that Mike McDonald entered today's press conference with the media and just kind of acknowledged the fact that there was this huge panoramic picture of Lumen Field now in the Seahawks, kind of auditorium, as he characterized. I mean, it was a chance for him to acknowledge to the Seahawks media and certainly to his players that this is our house and you have to protect it. And you're going against the San Francisco 49ers, frankly, have bullied you around. And as you said, with Nick Bosa, is absolutely one of the NFL's best. Michael Williams, I think, is a kind of a guy that Mike McDonald himself would have loved to have been available to the Seahawks because he is a physical brute at the point of attack. Bryce Huff is a good pass rusher. I love the fact that you just acknowledged him. To me, there's going to be so much talk about Seattle's skill position players, as there should be. But at the same time, Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, if the Seahawks lose either one of them for any significant amount of time, then all of these, prognostications that Seattle is going to make the postseason, that all goes out the freaking window. They have to be not only on the field, they have to be difference makers on the field. And so this is your very first test. And so I think that this is a fascinating matchup in so many different ways. Nick Bosa's ability to get up the field, his agility, his underrated power, certainly Mykel Williams' physicality. Nick Bosa, if you look at how he is actually utilized by the 49ers, they use him on both the right and left side. So both Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas are going to get plenty of opportunities to go up against a very talented pass rusher. I expect Mykel Williams, for the most part, to be playing on the left defensive end role, so primarily against Abraham Lucas. So I think that is going to be kind of a mano-a-mano battle of physicality. Again, I think that it is critical. If Seattle is able to run the ball effectively and obviously protect Sam Darnold, they have to win this matchup.
If you want to slow down Bosa and company, you mentioned the key words, the run game. And I do think the fact that you don't have a Leonard Floyd or you don't have a Chase Young or some of the other guys that have been on this roster in the past that have been running mates to go with Nick Bosa, the fact that Yetur Gross-Matos is dealing with an injury. I mean, they've got some issues off the edge right now in terms of trying to figure out how they're going to replace production away from Nick Bosa. It does give you more flexibility to chip with tight ends, chip with running backs, because you don't have that other side that you have to necessarily fear as much. We're going to need to be able to do that. You can dedicate more resources. But the traditional way to slow down a guy like Nick Bosa, and Robert Turbin was talking about it on our Seahawks Squad show, it's running right at him. And I look at this running back linebacker matchup, as long as Fred Warner, number 54, is in the middle for the 49ers, I think that his new running mate, D. Winters, is a player that can be susceptible against the run, much more so than what Dre Greenlaw was. You still got number 54 there, though. I want to see Seattle's line of scrimmage be controlled by the offensive line, and I want to see Ken Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. And if we see George Halani in those 2-minute drills and third down situations, I want to see how those guys handle getting to the second level against these linebackers. And can they get open against Fred Warner in the passing game? I want to see him attack that second level and see if Fred Warner can mitigate maybe some of the deficiencies of his new running mate that may not be quite as good as what Dre Greenlaw was. So I have questions about the front seven away from the two stars for the 49ers, but until the Seahawks go out there and actually prove that they can consistently get their linemen to the second level and they can spring runs, until they actually prove that, hey, it's all speculation right now. They're going to have to be able to run the football some so they can get some pressure off their offensive linemen and make it that Nick Bosa can't pin his ears back. So I'm looking at that run game. It's as critical as ever in this particular matchup to set the tone right out of the gate. We are going to run the football, and we are going to stick with it. Even if you stuff us a little bit early, we are going to run the football at you, and we are going to do it effectively. That's crucial for the Seahawks to win this football game.
It absolutely is. And I think that we've seen the proof with Zach Charbonnet. We have not yet seen that with Kenneth Walker III. Does he actually have the vision, the instincts, the patience to be effective in an outside zone read? We don't know that yet. We've seen evidence of it in training camp and not in the preseason games as well. It's one of the reasons why Mike McDonald kind of called his star running back out and said, hey, you've got to stack some practices just to kind of earn this spot. I am so excited to see if Kenneth Walker III is able to quite literally hit the ground running against the 49ers, because Fred Warner is that damn good at the linebacker position. He ran the 4.5s in the 40-yard dash, but he plays so much faster because of his instincts, his ability to get off blocks. But Kenneth Walker is one of the very, very few backs in all of the NFL who has enough bursts to still be able to beat Fred Warner and D. Winters to the outside. The way that he attacks the line of scrimmage, when he sees it, he can be gone. And so, again, that just provides a different element of speed and explosiveness than very many other backs and very many other NFL teams can offer. Look, Zach Charbonnet, I think, can be very effective. So that's one of the things I'm fascinated about in this particular matchup, Corbin, is can Kenneth Walker III kind of seize back this starting role? Because if he cannot, I feel very confident that Zach Charbonnet can be very effective in that role. He proved it last year career with more rushing yards, more rushing touchdowns than Kenneth Walker III. So this isn't just a matchup of the Seahawks running back against the 49ers linebackers. This is a matchup of the Seahawks running back 1, Kenneth Walker III, versus Seahawks running back 2 and 3, as you mentioned with George Holani. If Kenneth Walker III wants to be the starter, he has got to be impressive now. Otherwise, I think that the Seattle might just kind of shift over and say, the heck with you. You're a dynamic talent, but we got to actually be productive and durable and reliable. And that is something that Zach Charbonnet and George Holani to this point have demonstrated in spades.
As we talked about yesterday, you get that run game going a little bit. I just keep looking at the depth chart for the San Francisco 49ers in the secondary. And there may be some players there that have the potential to be really solid starters down the line. But this is as ripe of a young group as you are going to find in the secondary, in the NFC West, and maybe the NFC. I mean, it is a barren wasteland in terms of experience away from Lenore. They just don't have much playing experience in that secondary. And one of the players they're going to be counting on is Upton Stout, who is their third-round selection out of Western Kentucky. And what a draw he gets for his first professional game. Hey, congratulations. You get to go against Cooper Kupp, one of the best slot running route receivers that you are going to find in the NFL the last 10 years, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. You got to deal with both those guys working out of the slot. That is a really challenging first matchup for Upton Stout. Renardo Green on the outside's got to deal with Torrey Horton's speed, Jackson Smith-Njigba. And Lenore, as good of a player as he is a smaller guy. And Seattle's got some bigger body receivers that I think can create some matchup issues against him as well. So I feel like this is an area the Seahawks can take advantage of as long as they set up their passing game with the run game. They have the receivers and the weapons to be able to take advantage of the inexperience the 49ers have in that back half.
There's just so many ifs in this conversation. If the Seahawks can run the football and therefore kind of mitigate the 49ers pass rush. If Seattle's offensive tackles can slow down Nick Bosa especially. And then if Seattle's receivers are able to get open, of course, they've talked about this ad nauseum, that I have some concerns about whether Seattle has the juice to be able to get NFL caliber cornerbacks on their heels. So I do love this particular matchup here because I think that is likely to go to be Cooper Kupp primarily out of the slot. Upton Stout, however, people are going to just kind of, they're going to see 5'8", 180 pounds, and they're going to see Western Kentucky, and they're just going to kind of brush him off. And I'm telling you guys that this is a real player. This is a kid who originally was at North Texas, went to Western Kentucky, was an all-conference player. SEC teams, Michigan, were other clubs that are other college teams that tried to lure him throughout the transfer portal, and he just stuck to his guns and stayed at Western Kentucky and wound up being a third-round pick. He is cat quick. He is very strong. He actually was recruited as a safety. He led all defensive backs with 21 repetitions of 225 pounds. He's 5'8", 180 pounds. This guy is physical. He is quick. He is a playmaker. I think he had 3 touchdowns based off of interceptions over his college career. I think that Cooper Kupp is as good and as smooth as a route runner as it gets. I'm actually calling for Cooper Kupp to get a touchdown in his Seahawk debut. However, if the Seahawks are unable to kind of corral the 49ers pass rush, this is a kid that can take it to the house the way that some of the 49ers cornerbacks in the past. You mentioned Deommodore Lenore. He's a playmaker. Renardo Green, he's a playmaker. Again, this is a 49ers secondary that doesn't look as good on paper as I think that they actually are on tape.
When we come back, we are going to shift gears. Seahawks on defense going up against the 49ers. We'll get to that coming up next here on our Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing Yahoo Fantasy. It has been my favorite place to play for a number of years. So whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league like me, Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better With season kickoff coming up on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. The NFL season's almost here, kicking off on September 4th. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, such as how many touchdown catches Jackson Smith and Jigba will have against the 49ers, building a same-game parlay with multiple prop bets from the opening week, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to the Matchup Wednesday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s out there. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Closing in on Sunday's season opener, Seahawks 49ers. We start with the hated rivalry right out of the gate. We just talked Seahawks on offense against the 49ers defense. Plenty of new faces for both teams on that front. Switching gears now, the 49ers have made some changes on offense as well. The Seahawks defense, as much continuity as you're going to find in the NFL compared to last year. They've added a few new pieces to the puzzle. Let's talk matchups going into this game. And it's interesting, Rob, because I think you could make an argument when you look at this game. You could make an argument for a number of different matchups that would be the most important. But to me, it still all boils down to, and I think this is what has Mike McDonald up at night going into this game, trying to slow down the 49ers ground game and not let them get big chunks of yards on first and second down. You want to create more situations where your pass rushers can really get after Brock Purdy. You don't want 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2. You don't want 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6. You want to be able to slow down the run early, and that onus is going to fall on Ernest Jones. It's going to fall on Tyrese Knight. Great news that he's healthy, but he's going to be thrown right back into the fire with a healthy Christian McCaffrey, which the Seahawks did not see in either one of their games that they played the 49ers last year. And, oh, by the way, they got another running back that's pretty good in Brian Robinson that they added as well. Seattle is going to have to slow down the ground game. They cannot let the 49ers have a bunch of successful runs on early downs. If they do, that is going to make this potentially a long afternoon. So I'm looking at the linebackers. Everything starts with the run game for the 49ers. The Seahawks have got to keep McCaffrey and Robinson bottled up, with their linebackers playing a big role in that.
Yeah, no question about it. I think that some would think that we were remiss in not mentioning the quarterback Sam Darnold in our earlier matchups when we were talking about Seahawks on offense. I think that a lot of national pundits out there are very skeptical about Sam Darnold. I think that they also are very much in on a return to form from Christian McCaffrey. And I think that both are fair questions. Look, that's one of the unfortunate things from a Seahawks perspective is everybody, I think, out there recognizes that Christian McCaffrey, when healthy, is just a different dude. And obviously in week 1, he is healthy. And so it's going to be a critical matchup for Seattle, not only in trying to slow him down in the running game, but as you mentioned with Brian Robinson, he might be able to be kind of that pounder in the middle, which just allows the 49ers to be that much more versatile with Christian McCaffrey on the perimeter as a receiver. So yes, there's no question about it. I think that, public enemy number 1 from a Seattle perspective is Christian McCaffrey.
And I think you have to also look at the line that's going to be blocking in front of him. And Trent Williams, we could talk about the future Hall of Famer ad nauseum on this episode. I mean, we could talk for hours about his talent. He's a fantastic player. And those matchups against the edges for the Seahawks, especially if Uchenna Nwosu, who's not playing this game, are worth monitoring. But I actually think when you look at this particular installment of Seahawks 49ers, I'm looking in the middle because Dominic Puni, as good as he was his rookie year, if he plays in this game, he's coming off an injury. He's probably not going to be 100% in this game. Ben Barch, the other guard, got let go by Jacksonville. Not a guy that has had a great NFL career to this point. I feel like in the interior with Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, Byron Murphy II, you might see Jared Ivey in there. I think we're going to see Quentin Bohanna and or Brandon Peely get called up for this game. Like, I feel like the defensive line should be able to dominate in the interior for the Seattle Seahawks. And I think that is critical to being able to hold up well against this run game. And I think creating interior pressure on Brock Purdy has always been more effective than when you get guys rushing from the outside because he isn't the biggest quarterback. If you can get guys pushed back into his face, you can create some vision issues for him. So I'm looking at Leonard Williams, the big cat in particular. I'm excited to see if he ends up against Ben Barch, even against Dominic Puni. I think you look at this defensive line, that should be an area that the Seahawks can have an advantage here going into this game.
It should be an advantage. Again, not only because of the physical talent the Seahawks have, but of course, again, as I mentioned before, this is the home game. And this is your chance to kind of establish some supremacy. And so I am absolutely calling on the 12s. Do what you got to do to bring it, because that's what the Seahawks need. I mean, they were very effective on the road a year ago. They were not so effective at home. And I think that's especially fascinating matchup between the best versus the best. Trent Williams, future Hall of Famer, easily. Leonard Williams, right on the cusp. And I think is trying to make an argument that, he should have been a much higher ranked than number 99 overall in the NFL's top 100 players a year ago. He should have been a strong consideration for the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year. And I thought it was fascinating, Corbin, kind of looking and watching tape from a year ago of all of the snaps that Leonard Williams had all season long, the most snaps that he had as a traditional right defensive end or even right outside linebacker was against the San Francisco 49ers and Trent Williams at Lumen Field a year ago. Yep. He had 10 snaps there. He had 4 tackles. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had 2 quarterback hits. He was very effective. You want to prove to the 49ers that you are the bullies on the block now, then you take the best offensive lineman, perhaps in the 49ers history, certainly in recent history, and you put him on his backside. And that's where I think that Mike Macdonald is thinking. I would not be surprised at all if Leonard Williams is very effective against the interior offensive lineman that you just highlighted, but against Trent Williams himself.
Yeah, they'll move him around. They did it a lot last year, and that's one of the reasons this defense is so good for Leonard Williams. So I think we could see some matchups between him and Trent Williams. That is one of those get your popcorn ready one-on-one matchups that you're looking forward to when the best are facing off against the best. And I'd be remiss not to mention the other guy that has been a Seahawks killer over the years and had an 1,100-yard season. Even though the 49ers were not great as a team last year, George Kittle had one of his finest years yet, even considering those circumstances. Almost 80 receptions, over 1,100 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns. He is still very much one of the elite at the tight end position. And I think that this is going to be a fascinating week 1 for the Seahawks going up against him, because they do have a new piece of the puzzle that could be an excellent cover defender to work against him and Nick Emanwari. Like, think about it. There's not another 6'4", 230-pound guy that runs in the low 4.3s out there. Like, this is, if there was a player you could concoct in a lab that would be able to match up well against George Kittle, Nick Emanwari would be the guy. With that being said, he's going to be playing in his first regular season game. He hasn't faced off against a guy of George Kittle's caliber, the physicality that he brings, his route running skills, and just his talent after the catch. So how much are you going to trust in his first game, Nick Emanwari, to play a lot of snaps and coverage against him? Or do you let Kobe Bryant, who's a smaller player, not as athletic, but is feisty, is fundamentally sound, has played now a lot of snaps at safety, do you put him more on George Kittle? I am fascinated to see what Mike Macdonald does, because he's got options now, but what is going to be the best option in week 1, especially with this being Nick Emanwari's debut? You don't necessarily throw him to the Wolves yet, or maybe Mike McDonald does. Maybe he's got the confidence to have him go against George Kittle a lot. But either way, they've got to find a way to slow him down, which has been a lot easier said than done in the past.
No question about it, especially recently. This is either one of my favorite statistics to throw out in today's show, or if you are a Seahawks fan, one of your least favorite statistics. In George Kittle's first 8 games against the Seahawks, Corbin, he had 0 touchdown receptions. In his last 5 games, he has 7. So George Kittle has become the guy that the Seahawks absolutely must stop. And as you said, I think that that basically Seattle approached the 2025 NFL draft. It's like, how do we slow down number 85 of the San Francisco 49ers? How do we slow down some of the other dynamic tight ends throughout the NFL as well? Trey McBride for the Arizona Cardinals has been a Seahawks killer as well. So maybe that is Nicky Moore. Maybe it is Kobe Bryant. Hell, I don't care what they do. If you want to slow down Brock Purdy and the George Kittle connection, you've got to have some type of way to stop them. Otherwise, you are going to be struggling to match up with a 49ers team that is healthier and is looking to rebound from a year ago. So I do think that with all due respect to a Brock Purdy conversation or any of the other matchups that we could be talking about, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, Kyle Juszczyk, et cetera, the Seahawks have got to figure out a way to slow down Christian McCaffrey, as we discussed, and they've got to figure out a way to slow down George Kittle.
As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, it's our first crossover Thursday of the 2025 season. I'll be teaming up with Locked On 49ers host Brian Peacock, and the two of us will be taking a closer look at Sunday's first matchup between these bitter rivals in the NFC West. Make sure that you listen in and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Go Hawks.